Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Toastmasters, I am super thrilled to be here today to do this. It's something I've been looking forward to for some time. Actually, I should tell you right off the bat that I recently, about 4 weeks ago, I had back surgery. And so, in amongst the Percocet and the muscle relaxers, I've been dreaming of this day and what I would say. So I'm really glad to be here 100% and ready to do this. So, to begin, I would like to tell you a story. So, once upon a time, there was a father and there was a son. The father's name was Daedalus, and the son, his son, was Icarus. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the whole tale, but I will cut to the chase of it, as it were. Locked up in the tower were the two of them. And due to all sorts of political shenanigans and what have you. And Daedalus was a master craftsman. He could build and conceive amazing things. And during their imprisonment, at the very top of the high tower, Daedalus conceived a plan and set forth to building the solution to their problem of escaping this tower. Now, here we are in this tower. We're on the island of Crete. So all around them is an ocean. And the king who threw them up there in the first place, he has complete control of the comings and goings of boats. And so they need an alternative plan to get off this island. And so what Daedalus conceives is the construction of wings. He collects the feathers of gulls and other materials that they have in the tower, and using wax, he creates these beautiful, elaborate wings, the same as any other bird. And he creates a set for himself and a set for his son. Now, he warns his son first that I'm going to go test these out. I'm going to see what I can do with them, see if they work. And so he wears the wings. He leaps. He takes that flying leap off the side of the tower, and he begins to ride the air. And he flaps, and he glides, and he figures it out, and eventually he figures out how to take flight with these wings. And he then returns to the tower, says, okay, this is going to work. Of course, I'm going to test him first before I just send you off, right? So, we're ready to do this. There's your set, here's my set. It's easy. Just feel it out, be in control. But there's two warnings. Number one is if you fly too low, the mist of the sea will come up and it will wet the feathers and it'll become too heavy and you will drown. If you fly too high, the heat of the sun will melt the wax and the wings will fall apart and you'll plummet, and at the end again, you'll drown. So not too high and not too low, nice and even, right down the middle, and just ride the air and feel it out, and you'll be fine. So they both put on their wings, and they set to the air, and they flap, and they glide, and they feel the wind, and the wind begins to take them away. And as they fly, father first, son in close proximity, it seems like they're going to make it. The mainland is only so far away, and that this was the perfect solution. But somewhere in the middle of it all, in the excitement of what's going on, Icarus forgets himself. He doesn't heed his father's warning, and he feels the power and the sensation and the excitement of riding the wind, and then he begins to ascend and ascend and ascend and ascend and ascend until it's as if there's no end to how high he can go. The heat of the sun begins to melt the wax. The feathers begin to give way. And all of a sudden, his wings are gone. And he plummets and he drowns in the sea. Both of them left together, the father arrived on his own. Now, the reason I bring up that story, and that story is typically told because the speaker wants to provide an illustration of the folly of hubris, of gumption, of just being so excited about what you're doing and what you can do and feeling completely invincible that there's no warning, no wisdom whatsoever can possibly have anything to do with how amazing you feel right now. And then it becomes your undoing. That's usually why that story is told. But I'm telling it to you today because ultimately, when you get up here and you start feeling this energy and you need something to do with it, it's got to go somewhere. It is possible that you can do not enough, and it is possible that you can do way too much, which I can tell you, I've had my fair share of failures. And it will be your undoing. That being said, let me go into what I came here to talk about today, which was, of course, gestures. Now, gestures on their own are really just a piece of the puzzle. They're just a tool in your kit. And I always, whenever I have an opportunity to speak about these kinds of things, people ask me, what they're looking for when people ask about, well, how do I do better gestures? What gesture should I use? What do I do? And the truth of the matter is that there's no magic recipe. There's no 12 set kit of gestures to pull out of the thing, right? Okay? I don't know what to tell you, but what I can tell you is this, is that you'll find them. You just gotta use them. Now, the funny thing about gestures is that it's just a natural thing. It just starts to come out as you do it. I mean, long before, as we go back to caveman times, long before there was the written word, before there was there any other mode of communication, there was simply oral history, right? That's how we told stories. And so there'd be a fire and everyone's gathered around and the hunt was fantastic and everybody's bragging about it, right? And so the stories of the hunt were told about the incredible, the lush jungle and going through it, and spear in hand and hunting the beasts and the size of the beast and how we took it down, and that's how they conveyed it. Because they used the two magic pieces of all of this, which is the way it looks and the way it sounds. And so through their storytelling, they told the story. And they provided the sounds, and they used their voice to give it highs and give it lows and to convey the drama. But that's only half the thing. I mean, can you imagine that exact same story I just told about the jungle and the beast and the spears if I had my hands in my pockets? So I went to the jungle. and we had our spears. And then the big fearsome beast, and then we speared it, and we took it down. Yay, for us. That's terrible. Look how awful that is. I mean, it's comical now, of course, but, it's the other half of it. It's the other half of the equation. The way things look and the way things sound. And so there was a relationship between them. And ultimately, it's really about getting up and just putting the pieces together. So what I want to do now is I want to break down from my personal experience, I want to break down the components of what's driving it, driving the energy that's going to run the gestures. And then I'm going to break down how voice, your storytelling, the thing that you want to say, and then using your body to provide the other part that really drives it home. So let us begin with the fuel in the engine, the thing, the substance, the energy that runs the whole contraption. And that, by and large, underneath it all, is fear. When you're up here, and it's just you, fear, and I'll be honest with you, this applies to me too. Fear begins in the feet. Fear's a funny thing. Fear's like a thermometer. Fear just starts down here, and then it kind of goes up, and then it starts to rise. And then pretty soon, and then it starts to fill the hands and the fingers. And then it comes up to the neck, and then it gets in the mouth, and then all of a sudden, and all of a sudden there's action. And once it hits the brain, it's go time. Fear is a very funny thing. And it's natural to feel fear. Fear, every person experiences fear in their own way, in their own time, for various different reasons. But ultimately, it is the same thing. It is just an incredible energy. It's just energy. It's all it is, ultimately. You can't turn it off. You can't get away from it. It's just in the machine. And so what do you learn to do? You learn to use it. You learn to focus it. Now, you guys probably know that if you've ever experienced a class of some kind that goes into fear, talks about fear, and they talk about the biological response to fear, they'll say it's fight or flight. And that there's something in the brain that says we're either getting out of Dodge or we're making our last stand. And that's very true. I'm not going to lie to you. As the days progressed and I got closer to this, I could feel it. And there's always that little wimp in the back of the bus who's, we shouldn't be going here. We shouldn't be doing this. I want off. And fortunately, that flight voice, doesn't win. And you might say, I'm doing this on the fly now as I'm thinking of new things. You might say he's kind of like the team manager of the football team, right? So he's got the towels and he's got the water. He knows where everybody's supposed to be and all the things. But unfortunately, he's just not convinced that they're a very good team. The team thinks they're fantastic because oh yeah, I got this, and I'll take oh absolutely, I'll knock them down and I'll run them over, and we'll just go out there and win. And look at the size of these. Look at the size of these. But they go off by themselves. These guns, they're so big, they're so powerful, and so ultimately, you don't let the flight voice win. Let the fight voice win. He said, no, we're gonna get up here, we're gonna do this. It doesn't matter if we win or we lose. We're gonna show up and we're gonna get it done. And we're gonna be so much better for the opportunity. And that is really the harnessing of fear. Steve Martin once said that when talking about his stand-up career, he said that ultimately stand-up is the ego's last stand. The ego, of course, being your sense of self-worth, self-esteem, that part of you that listens to fight and says, yeah, we got this. And it's just you, completely open, completely blank to the audience, and it's thrilling, but it is terrifying. Totally terrifying. And so then, of course, that's why in stand-up they say, when you went out there and you did a good job, oh, I murdered him. I knocked him dead. Oh, just wiped him out. right? Because ultimately, a stand-up comedian knows that if you don't do that, if you don't kill them first, the audience will most certainly kill you. Which they have done to me numerous times, I'm here to tell you right now, is the audience smells fear, they smell flight, they hear the little whiner in the back of the bus, and they pounce. They absolutely pounce. And so ultimately, running away, fleeing, letting fear win, in other words, is not an option. And so you learn to accept the fact that it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just a thing, it's just energy. And then you take it in, and you harness it, and you focus it, and you go after it. You let the fuel fill the machine, and let it run the machine. Now, the reason I wanted to begin with that is because ultimately, if you were to put in front of someone a machine of some kind, a contraption of some kind, and you talk about all the wonderful things it can do, and it does this and does that, and julienne fries and the whole nine yards, then that's fantastic. But any given person is going to ask, okay, so how does it run, right? Is there a crank? Do I plug it in? Is it kerosene? Like, what is this thing? I don't know what goes in this thing. Like, how do I make it work? Well, before I describe the machine, I'm going to talk about how it runs. And you start with, you plug it in. You start with, you crank it up. You start with whatever. And so that's where the fuel comes from, and that's what you should do with it. Now let's talk about the machine. So in improvisation, there's a reference to what's known as the creative intuitive. And the creative intuitive is this nebulous part of the brain that takes all the things you know. It takes everything you can do. It takes all the desperate pieces of everything about you. And it magically, wonderfully brings them all together and stitches them. And I use the word nebulous for a reason because, of course, I'm going to oversimplify this, but of course in the heavens there are nebula, and within every nebula is massive swirling gases. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, magical colors. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the photos from NASA. They're fantastic. It's just amazing. God's paintbrush is just a marvelous thing. And there's all this stuff happening. And everything starts to come together. And it swirls, and it collides, and it reacts, and it does everything. And out from this is produced the most magnificent thing. Oftentimes, this is how a star is born. We brought in this, we brought in that, there were all these reactions, who knows what's going on, and this is magnificent output. And so the creative intuitive is a lot like that. It's a lot like the production of a star. It's just, we don't know how it works, we don't know why it works, but we just know that it does. We don't know where things come from, we just know that it does. And when you take fear and you plug it, you put it into that machine, and you turn on fight, and you set the machine to fight, and it just starts running. All of a sudden, the creative intuitive begins to just go, yeah, I got this. I know what to do. I know what's going on. And all of a sudden, the machine just starts running. And that's when our two pieces come together. Voice and presence. Voice and gestures. The sound and the visual come together. And you just go into it. And you start saying, using your voice, the voice that you've always had, the voice that you know, the voice you've been using, the voice that is just you, and it comes out. And that's part of the machine. And then the other part of the machine kicks in too. The gestures do. And the gestures start reflecting the honesty, the integrity, the genuine sincerity of your voice. they start driving home what you mean. Because ultimately, if you care about something, if you're here to do something, if you're here to win, you're not going to just drop your hands to your side, or put it behind you, or fiddle around, or find your keys. Okay? Because what is that? No, you're going to fight. And the fuel has gone from the feet to the legs, to the abdomen, into the arms, into the head. The machine is running. The voice is coming out. I'm saying what I want to say. I'm saying it because I mean it. And all of a sudden, the hands just start doing stuff. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It can be very distracting. Have you ever seen those things in front of like car lots or whatever? They sit there and do this, right? Honestly, I have no idea what they're selling. I've seen many of those. I don't actually know if it was a car lot or if it was a furniture store or if it was just some guy's house. I have no idea. All I know is I saw one of these things flying around, and I lost track of the road. But I always remember, hey, you know what's coming up? This giant inflatable waving thing. So ultimately, you learn that here I am. I'm in fight mode. I got voice. I'm saying what I want to say. And now the hands are moving, and they're helping. I'm just nailing every single person in the crowd. Yes, this speech is only for you. It's so magical. I'm so passionate, or I couldn't care less, or all the things. Their reflection is there, and the machine is running, and gestures are happening. That's what gestures can do. And then all of a sudden, it seems to be working. Maybe you got a laugh. Maybe you got this. Maybe you got that. But ultimately, it's running. And it just sort of happens. So I can't tell you what's in the kit. I can't tell you what you should do. I don't know if you should do a clenched fist or if you should do you should just wave your hands around. I don't know if you should do jazz hands. I don't know what you should do. I honestly don't know. But what I can tell you is that if you genuinely believe in what you're doing, if you control the fuel going into the machine and you run the machine and you trust that this is going to be awesome-tastic, then you're going to be fine. Just be sure that you don't let yourself deny the audience the opportunity to hear a fantastic message. Be sure that you don't fly too low. And when you're really up there and you're really feeling it, be sure not to fly too high. Because ultimately, you're going to fail. And after all, you're here to fight and you're here to win. Thank you.